Hello everyone. If you could put your name and where you're based in the chat, that would be great. And we're just going to wait a few moments for everyone to come in. It's wonderful. It's like a water full of names and places. Perfect. Well, thank you so much everyone for joining and finding the time to do this today. And we're going to do a few different writing exercises. And there's absolutely no pressure to create something that is a masterpiece. It's just really about kind of generating ideas, surprising ourselves maybe, and nothing we write will be shared. So don't worry about that. And you can write in any language that you feel comfortable with. And I just want to make sure everyone's got pen and paper before we begin, or you can write straight onto your laptop if you want to, or you can draw if you want to. However, basically, I'll do a few exercises. If you want to write something else, just go with it. Feel free to ignore me and yeah, do it as drawing or writing. So the first thing I want us to do is just to get into our hands and our arms a little bit before we start and get into our bodies. So I'm going to ask everyone if you could, if possible, stand up, or if you've got your headphones on, you can do this seated. So I'll just make sure you can all see me. So what I want you to do is just imagine there's someone with puppet strings. And you're just going to raise up your elbows first on the strings. And then hold that there for a second. And then the strings are going to lift up your wrists. And then the strings are going to lift up each of your fingers. And take a deep breath here. And then I want you to imagine someone's come along with massive scissors and they're just going to cut the strings that are holding your fingers up. So drop those down. And then they're going to come and they're going to cut the strings that are holding your wrists up. So drop those down. And then finally, they're going to cut the strings that are holding your elbows up and just let your arms crash down beside your bodies. Give them a little shake because our hands might get a little bit tired because we're going to do lots of writing. And I just wanted to start by welcoming you all with a poem. And I'll just share it with you so you can see it too. So this is by a poet called Polly Atkins, and she lives in the Lake District. And it was written during the first lockdown last April. And it's called Isolation Blessing. It's like a sick month. I only travel between the bedroom and living room and bathroom, bathroom and kitchen, kitchen and garden, only when essential or medical. Each afternoon, I put outside clothes on. I walk up the lane. I visit the heron. The heron is displeased with proximity, pretends not to be in. I look for frogs in the drying pond. I rest on stones and logs, unafraid of punishment from moving wrongly beyond my bodies, where only the deer are watching. Though once a police van passes as I stand in a clearing, fixed by the stare of a doe, and I reach for my water bottle as proof I am mobile, local, legal. The centre of the village is as distant as the past, and as strange, as sad and shamed with danger. I do not go there. I forget the ways. But before bed some nights, far places sidle up as I sit in my chair, calling like owls at the window. And the shriveled globe bubbles up like the loaf proving by the radiator. And Canada sings in my living room, sings as I swim in the training pool of the bath. We sing together. Our voices a portal, a path. So one afternoon, when the sun has risen, surprised from the year's cold midnight, Scotland sings a blessing to the birds of Lakeland, and the birds of Lakeland sing back. So during the workshop, if at any point you lose internet signal, you can just rejoin using the same link, and this workshop will be recorded. So if you lose your internet completely, then you can just watch the recording back later. So we're going to start and we're going to do some free writing in response to a murmuration of starlings. And this is just really to get us warmed up. It doesn't have to make any sense at all. The most important thing is just to get the writing down on the page and respond to whatever comes up. So we'll do this for 2 minutes. So I'll just give you a few more moments just to finish up whatever you're writing. And then when you've finished, if you you just read back through what you've written and just underline anything that surprises you or you didn't expect or that you quite like and might want to expand either further on in the workshop or afterwards. And for our first writing exercise, I'll just share. We're going to do a Caspar David Friedrich. We're going to do a self-portrait of ourselves in a landscape. So I will give you some prompts, and then if you can just keep writing, and then as I say something, if you can just add that into what you're writing. And what we're doing is really placing ourselves in a landscape, and it can be, you know, any place at all. So the first prompt to start with is above me. So if you can write for a few minutes, starting with the line above me. And then at my feet, at my feet. And then the next line is my roof is. The next line is to my right, to my right. And then the next line is in front of me, in front of me. And then your next line is my hand reaches for. My hand reaches for. The next line is the sound of, the sound of. So to tune into any sounds you imagine you can hear or that you can hear. And then your last line is I have. I have. Okay, and then if you can finish up with what you're writing, give your hand a shake if you need to. And then we're just going to have a look at a few poems where, like we've just done, the person writing has put themselves within the poem. And then I'll give you a few minutes just to look through what you've written and see if it takes on any shape. And you'll notice with some of these poems that they're often written in the present tense. They're kind of describing moments as they unfold. And we're going to look at one contemporary poem and then a few ancient poems from Irish and from Chinese. And these are by monks and hermits who lived in mountains or the woods. And so they're in their poems, as it were. But we'll start with James Wright. Lying in a hammock at William Duffy's farm in Pine Island, Minnesota. Over my head, I see the bronze butterfly asleep on the black trunk, blowing like a leaf in green shadow. Down the ravine behind the empty house, the cowbells follow one another. Into the distance of the afternoon. To my right, in a field of sunlight between two pines, the dropping of last year's horses blaze up into golden stones. I lean back as the evening darkens and comes on. A chicken hawk floats over, looking for home. I have wasted my life. I just love that last line. And then I've just put some little extracts from the Irish poems, but you'll kind of see what I mean about the placedness of it. So this one is writing out of doors. A wall of forest looms above, and sweetly the blackbird sings. All the birds make melody over me and my books and things. The Hermit's Song. A hiding tuft, a green-barked yew tree is my roof, while nearby a great oak keeps me tempest-proof. And then we'll move to one of the Chinese poems, and this is by Li Po. Reverence Pavilion Mountain, sitting alone. The birds have vanished into deep skies. A last cloud drifts away. All idleness. Inexhaustible. This mountain and I gaze at each other. It alone remaining. And then we'll finish with this Swedish poem, The Forest Lake. I was alone on a sunny shore by the forest's pale blue lake. In the sky floated a single cloud, and on the water a single isle. The ripe sweetness of summer dripped in beads from every tree, and straight into my opened heart a tiny drop ran down. So what I'd like us to do is to use these as kind of scaffolding, architecture, to look back through what you've written already and add to it, change bits. You might decide actually you want to be in a different place. And if you can just kind of really place yourself there and think of what's next to you, around you, what sounds. And I'll just give us, about 6 minutes to do this, because I want us to do a few different exercises, because I don't know about you, but sometimes something works and then the next thing doesn't. So I want to give us all time to generate lots of new work, and hopefully one or two of the exercises might create something that we want to take forward. So yeah, I'll give you about 6 minutes to write your kind of self-portrait in a landscape. Doesn't need to be long, doesn't need to be finished, it's just a beginning. Okay, so if you can finish off with what you're writing, the sentence that you're writing, and well done. So the next thing we're going to do is go on holiday. We're going to go wild camping or into the wilderness or wherever you feel. And this time I want us to do the opposite of what we did before. And I almost want us to dissolve into the landscape that we choose. And I'll read a few poems to you, and then I'll tell you what the exercise is, and I'll put the prompt in the chat as well so that you can see it. So, Wanderer's Night Song by Goethe. Over all the hilltops, it's still. In all the treetops, you hear barely a breath. The birds are asleep in the trees. Wait. Soon, you too shall find rest. And Goethe wrote this poem on the wall of a hut. He'd gone hiking in a forest near Weimar, and he just wrote this up onto the wall of the hut and stayed there one night. Sleeping in the forest. I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed. Nothing between me and the white fire of the stars, but my thoughts. And they floated light as moths among the branches of the perfect trees. All night I heard the small kingdoms breathing around me, the insects and the birds who do their work in the darkness. All night I rose and fell as if in water, grappling with a luminous doom. By morning, I had vanished at least a dozen times into something better. Dawn landscape. The last watch has sounded in Kyoto. Colour spreading above Solar Terrace Mountain. A cold sun clears high peaks. Clouds linger, blotting out canyons below tangled ridges. And deep Yangtze banks keep sails hidden beneath clear skies, clatter of falling leaves. And these deer at my bramble gate, so close here, we touch our own kind in each other. and this is by Thomas Merton. What a thing it is to sit absolutely alone in the forest at night, cherished by this wonderful, unintelligible, perfectly innocent speech, the most comforting speech in the world, the talk that rain makes by itself all over the ridges, and the talk of the water courses everywhere in the hollows. Nobody started it. Nobody is going to stop it. It will talk as long as it wants, this rain. As long as it talks, I am going to listen. And this last one is by Han Shan, who's also known as Cold Mountain. I've lived out tens of thousands of years on Cold Mountain. Given to the seasons, I've vanished among forests and cascades, gazed into things so utterly themselves. No one ventures up into all these cliffs, hidden forever in white mist and cloud. It's just me. Thin grass, my sleeping mat, and azure heaven, my comforting quilt. Happily pillowed on stone, I'm given to heaven and earth, changing on and on. So you'll get a sense from those poems, and there's a few different elements. There's the kind of aloneness of it, not another human being in sight. So I invite you to do that, and almost to remember our animalness and forget that we're human. So that border, that boundary between us and other things kind of melts a little bit, and you can take yourself off to a forest. You could be up a mountain, you could be next to a lake, you could be on a boat, wherever your mind takes you, just be there. And you don't have to start writing straight away. You can take a few moments almost to attune to where you are. And it's quite fun to imagine that you've just woken there, or you have to sleep there overnight, because those night times, dawn, dusk, night, they're those liminal between times when the world comes alive and the human world kind of quiets down a little bit. So I'm going to give you about 8 to 10 minutes to do this, and I'll put the prompt now in the chat. So if you can just finish the sentence that you're working on, or the line, or and if you want to, you can put in the chat where you ended up, if it was a forest or a mountain or a lake or a sea or an island, wherever you ended up. Feel free to share where you went to. So I wanted to share with you, before we do the next exercise, some of the things that I used to write with. And so a few years ago, I was given a waterproof notebook and I started writing in the sea. I love being in water and underwater. And I used to go and swim out, study the fish, come back to shore, look them up, do some writing. And then I could just write in the sea. So I'd go off for hours and write. And sometimes I used a slate if I was diving. But one of the things I've been looking at is there are certain things we can immerse ourselves in: water, the weather, and then there's certain places that we can't so much, like the air, unless I guess we're in a helicopter or something. But I use a few different things to try and make myself superhuman, so to hear beyond human sound and things like that. So one of them is this little stethoscope that you can put on trees and you can hear the sap, and it sounds like Prosecco or champagne or something fizzy bubbling up in the springtime around now. And then also I use little to try and, one of the things we're going to do next is really get close up with something and imagine it from an insect's perspective. And I use this little jeweler's magnifying glass that just cost £1 to kind of look close into flowers, and the same with this. And then I also sometimes write with a bat detector, which can hear all the different frequencies, and each frequency is a different species. So for this next exercise, we're going to look closely and we're going to alienate ourselves a little bit and imagine ourselves into a different species. And I'll share one of the things I've discovered when looking closely at things. So when I first saw this, to me it looks like rock art or cave art, and I didn't quite know what it was. And so I took different photographs and videos and looked it up. And they almost look like the imprint of a spider. And then one of the, and these are all fallen trees. And one of them, the whole length of the tree had this patterning, all like a tattooed sleeve all along it. And these are the remnants of Dutch elm disease, of the beetles. This is their, they're called the elm bark nurseries. This is where their larvae are laid and then they hatch out. So that's what this is. And I've put the prompt in the chat, and I'm just going to share two poems with you, and then we'll talk through the exercise. So this first one is called Robin in Flight. And a bit like with some of the things I'm using, and sometimes I use my phone to record sounds while I'm out and then come home and write to them, or to slow things down with making videos. And that's a little bit how flies see. So I just try and get as close as I can as a human to how other species experience the world. So I'll read these two, which give a sense of what we're going to do. Robin in Flight. Let's imagine for a second that the robin is not a contained entity moving at speed through space, but that it is a living change, unmaking and remaking itself over and over by sheer unconscious will. And that if we were to slow down the film enough, we would see a flying ball of chaos, flicking particles like Othello counters, air turning to beak in front just as tail transforms to air behind, a living being flinging its changes at a still universe. This would require infinite alignments, each molecule privy to the code of its possible settings, the capacity of a blade of grass to become the shadow of a falling apple by pure force, of the tree's instinct. Every speck of world with the potential to become stone, dog's breath, light twisted through glass, filth under fingernails, the skin's bend at the bullet's nudge the moment before impact, the thought of a robin in flight, the thought of a robin in flight. And that one won the National Poetry Competition a few years ago. So next we're going to look at Bird by Pablo Neruda. And Pablo Neruda is best known for his love poems, but he wrote incredible poems about birds. I really encourage you to go and have a look. Bird. It was passed from one bird to another, the whole gift of the day. The day went from flute to flute, went dressed in vegetation, in flights which opened a tunnel through the wind would pass, to where birds were breaking open the dense blue air, and there night came in. When I returned from so many journeys, I stayed suspended and green between sun and geography. I saw how wings worked, how perfumes are transmitted by feathery telegraph, and from above I saw the path, the springs and the roof tiles, the fishermen at their trades, the trousers of the foam. I saw it all from my green sky. I had no more alphabet than the swallows in their courses, the tiny shining water of the small bird on fire, which dances out of the pollen. Yes, so for this exercise, you can really pick anything you want. It could be that you're a bird and you can zoom out. It could be that you're something with superhuman hearing and you can hear sounds beyond, you know, or you could be, it could be that you're an insect crawling along a log and the length of your poem or prose piece is the length of that log. It could be that you're a moth and you focus more on smell and scent of white night flowers, of pale night flowers. It could be that you're a bee and you only see certain colours, so you could focus on colour, and each section could be a different flower. And feel free to be quite abstract with this, make things up, you know, don't worry about it making sense because it's an act of the imagination. We can't know what it's like to see through different species' eyes. So I will put this prompt in the chat now, and you've got about 8 minutes to do this. So really just to make a start. Okay. If you can finish what you're writing for this one, and I'd love to hear what you ended up being or where you ended up being. If you want to put that in the chat, that would be great. A kingfisher. Lovely. A Martha Fox. Mycelium. Lichen. What? Oh. Oh, wonderful. A carrot. This is fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. A worm. A fledgling buzzard. Oh my goodness. An ant. Great. Ice frog. A minnow. I nearly swore then. You guys, this is fantastic. Perfect. So the next thing we're going to do from this, the next level, is that we're going to do some live writing in response to something. And there's a few poets that do this. Sean Borrowdale is one of them, and he wrote one collection at his beehive, and he wrote it over the course of a year, and each poem, he calls them lyrographs. They're kind of like live studies written in situ with the subject as things unfold. And there's another poet who used to be based down in Devon, Alice Oswald, and she would walk along the Dart each day at low tide, you know, either kind of whichever low tide it was, and she would compose her poems while she was walking, and she calls them sound sculptures, and she would not write them down until the poem felt complete. And some of these poems are an hour long to hear them. And she also, in her last collection, Falling Awake, she did a poem that was exactly the length of dawn, and each stage of the poem were the stages of the dawn, so nautical, light, twilight, and each morning she'd go out and sit, and she'd just kind of transcribe or translate the dawn, as it were. And there's another poet called Les Murray who did a collection called Translations from Nature. So that's what I'd like us to do next, but I want it to be really loose and almost like a poetic sketch of something. And kind of, it is, I invite you to find a sit spot or a place that you can return to. It can be anywhere, it can be a pavement, and just to look at it over the course of a year, on different times of day. And a lot of artists worked in this way. So Monet would return to the same place at exactly the same time, sometimes up to 68 times. And Turner would take notes on the weather and only, you know, kind of replicate the conditions. So I'm going to put a link in the chat, which I'd like you to click on. I'll just do that now. And one of the things that I do when, like a lot of people, it's lockdown at the moment and we're a bit trapped. But what I've tried to do each year for the last few years is pick a different Nest cam or live nature cam and watch it. So I did swifts one year, and you can watch swift cams in lots of cities. Badgers have cubs at the moment, so there might be some badger sets that you can watch. There's owl cams, and it's really beautiful because you can kind of return to it just for a moment each day, and you can see them from egg to fledgling. And I think in times where we're restricted, or if we live in a place where we can't access nature that readily, then it's a lovely way to tune in. So if you click on the link in the chat, it will take you to a page of live nature cams. And what I would like you to do is to choose any one of them. There's eagles, there's cats, there's elephants, and I want you to write live in response to whichever one you choose. And if you can't get the link to work, if you just Google nature cameras or live nature cameras, it should take you there. And I'm going to give us 8 minutes again. So we have a little bit of time at the end to wrap up. If you start writing and it's a really boring live nature cam, feel free to switch to a different one. You've got about another minute with this one, just to let you know. So if I can tear you away from your webcams, and if you can make your way back here. And I would love to know which habitats or animals you watched. Sea nettles. I'm just looking at everyone's things. This is fabulous. Jellyfish tank wolves. We've gone global. We've gone global. Eagles. Yeah, I love watching the eagles. And you can return, I mean, do save the tab of wherever, you know, whichever place you ended up, because you can just check in on it every now and again. And there's quite a few citizen science projects where you can listen for whales. I used to do this in quite a boring job. I used to have my headphones on and I'd listen for pods of whales. And then when you see them, you put a little, well, when you hear them, sorry, you put a little thing on the map to help scientists with their research. Wonderful, really wonderful. So if it's okay, I'm going to give you a homework task, which basically there's one more poem in the poems that will be emailed to you, and it's called The Darker Sooner by Catherine Wing. It's quite a strange poem. It's very short, but it encapsulates that feeling of being completely deluged in a rainstorm or by dark kind of stormy weather or in water. So for this homework task, I'll put the prompt. Yeah, for the homework task, if you can write either immersed in weather or water, or it could be about winter and the darkness coming in, just something where you feel kind of really submerged in it. It could be a bath, could be the shower. It doesn't need to be wild water. And then just a few things before we wrap up. And first of all, I want to say thank you to you all, because you worked really hard and it was like a marathon getting through all the exercises. But I just wanted us to have a range, and so that hopefully you'll have maybe a line or some ideas that you can then go away and think about and carry on or change or shape into something. And if you want to save the chat, just at the bottom, there's 3 little dots and you can click on that and save the chat. And yeah, we will email the poems out to you. And just to say thank you so much, really. And I'll finish by reading the poem that's the homework poem. So I'll just share the screen here. So this is the darker sooner. Then came the darker sooner, came the later lower. We were no longer a sweeter here, happily ever after. We were after ever. We were farther and further. More was the word we used for harder. Lost was our standard bearer. Our gods were fallen faster and fallen larger. The day was duller, duller was disaster. Our charge was error. Instead of leader, we had louder. Instead of lover, never. And over this river broke the winter's black weather. So, well done to everyone. And there'll be another workshop on the 20th of March at the same time, and then one a month later as well. And they'll be on writing about place and where we come from and our roots, and also on spring, on more than daffodils. And we'll be looking at poems from the Pacific Islands, from all over the world, about the different spring times and just thinking about the seasons in different ways. But thank you all so much for coming, and I hope you have beautiful weekends. Pat yourselves on the back, have a little shake out of your hands, and maybe get some fresh air. But well done, everyone. And I'm going to leave you, for those who don't have to dash off, with a video of an artist talking about a tree.